Thank you for being here again. This morning and this week, we're working with two concepts to help strengthen our practice. In Sanskrit, these terms are known as abhyasa and vairagya. But in more plain English, what we're really talking about is a long, enduring commitment to practice. That's abhyasa, which literally means well-placed effort. So we're talking about being connected to our practice, returning to it again and again, even after we maybe take a break or something, continuing to return and making it a lifelong practice with devotion and commitment is sort of what this word means. So the other element that we're working with is called vairagya, and this means detachment or letting go, surrendering. This means releasing any expectations that we have as we practice. And the takeaway from these two concepts together, balanced, the takeaway for me is that rather than thinking of your practice as conveying you towards some outcome, beginning to see the practice itself as the outcome or as the reward, continuing to return to something that brings you comfort and strength and flexibility and stability, mental calm, emotional peace, all these things, stillness, which we so lack in our culture. So the practice, returning to this again and again, like those things that come from practice are the reward, and just engaging with that with intention sort of is the outcome. So I wanted to just bring in the sutras where these two words are found. This is Yoga Sutra 1, 12 through 14. I brought you two translations as usual, so we kind of get a more general idea. So this first one is from Chip Hartranft, and it means, its translation is, both practice and non-reaction are required to still the patterning of consciousness. Practice is the sustained effort to rest in stillness. This practice becomes firmly rooted when it is cultivated skillfully and continuously for a long period of time. So we sort of have the definitions of abhyasa and vairagya, so that sustained effort to rest in stillness being the practice, and remaining connected to it and letting go of the outcomes. So another translation of these same sutras, 12 through 14, is practice and detachment are the means to still the movements of consciousness. Practice is the steadfast effort to still these fluctuations. Long, uninterrupted, alert practice is the firm foundation for restraining these fluctuations. We might remember that the very definition of yoga given to us in the sutras is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind, or the ability to remain steady in the face of all of these fluctuations. In other words, to not be affected by them. So that's what we're going to kind of work on today, is how the obstacles and the hindrances that we experience in fact are the path, rather than something that blocks us. It's the very key, or the doorway, through which we have to move. And by the same account, the practice itself being the reward. Maybe we can focus here at the very beginning of practice on that feeling when we're just starting to come into Shavasana, or just starting to come out of Shavasana, that sort of lift that we get from our practice. So we'll begin in a just seated position. If you have some yoga blocks or a similar type of support, we might use those for practice today as well. And first thing we're going to do is just connect to stillness. Start to feel that lower body getting really heavy, very stable, very grounded. Maybe shift the weight of the chest and the heart around a little bit until you feel that alignment between tailbone, heart, and crown of the head. Continuing that sort of downward pull of energy in the low body. Also let the shoulders relax, and any muscles in the face free themselves of any tension or holding. And start to feel that upward flow of energy from that stability, or from that stillness and grounding. We start to feel the heart beating more consistently, the breath moving more smoothly through the body. Thoughts beginning to slow, our focus coming into the physical sensations and the mental calm. I'm just finding this practice of sitting in and of itself, the very profound practice of yoga, connecting that upward and downward flowing movement into one thing, is practicing yoga. Practicing our endurance to sit in this pose for long periods of time, as well as letting go of any outcome from this seated shape, is practicing that state of yoga, that union or wholeness or oneness. We also see this echoed in our Sthira Sukham Asana, which is another sutra from the sutras, how the balance of effort and ease, or flexibility and stability, are also the practice of yoga. So from this stillness, we're going to bring ourselves into some challenge now. And this will be a little test of endurance for us. So the arms are going to come up so that the elbows are roughly at shoulder height. We want to try to choose something here where they stay roughly at that height. What you do with your hands is kind of up to you. I like my elbows bent, but what you do with your hands is kind of up to you. Sitting nice and tall so we have that effort moving upward through the elbows and the crown of the head, as well as the downward flow of our energy into the earth to stabilize our hips. We're going to start to just do some twisting. Now you can take this quickly or slowly. We're going to try this as an endurance trial. We're going to stay in this movement for some time. And ideally, we're kind of checking in with the elbows, making sure they don't drop below the shoulders. Starting to feel that warm up happening in the lateral muscles along the sides of the ribs as well as in the shoulders. You can choose to move your head kind of with this twisting motion as well. And over time, we start to feel that heat building. We start to feel the effort of this starting to wear us a little bit. And the idea is to do that commitment level of practicing where we just stay with it. Facing and being fully present with the challenge and any sensations that it brings. So checking in with your elbows again. We'll stay here for maybe another 30 seconds or so if you can. Feeling your breath be smooth, feeling that consistency in the lower body, even as the upper body is in a constant motion. About 5 more breaths. Check in with your elbows. One last ditch effort here. And on the exhale of that 5th breath, come into stillness, relax your arms down, feel that heat in the body. This is us now letting go of that action in order to just allow the benefits of our practice to wash over us. We can start to feel that strength building both in our core and our shoulders. And then we'll move from here into a tabletop shape, continuing our little warm-up movements here. And we're just going to introduce a little pause in our breath. So take an inhale, let your belly drop. When you get to the top of your inhale, gentle, just noticeable pause. Exhale, lift the heart, tuck the chin. When you get to the bottom of your exhale, just a little pause. And keep that motion going. So again, we're just committing to this motion. An enduring practice of the same thing over and over again. It's like purposely building up a pattern of samskara, because we know that this pattern plants seeds that bring us to a fruition of wholeness, oneness, completeness. Then come back to center, take a little pause. We're just gonna do a little lateral bending now. So we started to warm up some of those muscles along the sides of the ribs. Let's walk hands over to one side of the mat. And kind of pull one shoulder away from the hip. Kind of squeeze the other side. So we have both opening and closing for a sense of balance. So much of this practice is about bringing opposites into union or into wholeness together. Start to walk yourself back through center and over to the other side. That same motion, again, balancing. Now that we're moving to that opposite side. Feel the stretch and opening on one side and that compression and kind of engagement on the other. Walking back through center again. This time we're just gonna start to stretch out the legs a little bit. We've worked a lot on the upper body, so let's stretch back one leg, kind of pressing into the palms, stretching the heel away from the back of the knee, opening up the calf muscles. And switching sides, other leg coming back, pressing into the palms again. Good. Coming back to all fours. Let's tuck both sets of toes now. And we're gonna come into a downward facing dog. And first we're just gonna kind of pause in down dog and check in with the two elements that we have. So we have engagement and enduring pressure into the floor, a lengthening of the arms and the spine. And then we have that letting go, that vairagya happening in the head. Heavy, relax through the neck muscles, kind of pulling the back of the heart open a little bit by separating the shoulder blades. And find a steadiness here. Where can you let go a little bit more? And where can you engage a little bit more to make this pose itself, the practicing of this pose, more sustainable? On your next exhale, start to walk your hands just a little bit forward to find a plank pose. Do feel free to drop your knees here. If your wrists are having trouble, you can always come to forearms as well. And again, we're just making a commitment. See if you can keep steady in your breath and engage through the arms, that same lifting of the back of the heart, that same lengthening of the spine, some engagement in your core. If you can take one more breath, breathe in one more time, and everybody on your exhale, come down to your belly. Soften first into the floor, relaxing the hips down, kind of shaking out any tension. Then on an inhale, find your engagement again, lifting the heart. So this might look like a cobra, it might look like a sphinx, it might look like an upward facing dog. So kind of finding your way to open the heart forward. Shoulders can roll back, squeezing this time. So we're kind of finding that opposite motion in the shoulder blades. Lengthen the crown of the head and the neck away from the heart. And we're just taking a pause here. Can you soften any place to make this pose more sustainable? Can you commit to the shape? Can you be present with all the sensations that arise? Exhale, release your upward shape and press back up into tabletop, and then send the hips back towards the heels. So this could look like child's pose, or it could look like hips just kind of in the air but reaching backward and lengthening the fingers towards the top of the mat. We're going to take this series of poses a few more times, committing to the longevity of that flow, but we're going to do it a little bit more quickly with our breath this time. So from your child's pose shape, rising back up into downward facing dog. Get a sense of that engagement and the letting go. Breath in, and then as you exhale, find your plank. This could also be knees on the mat or a table shape if you need to. Exhale, bring your belly down, soften. Then inhale to lift your heart, lengthening your spine and your neck. Exhale, soften, pressing up through table and back into either child's pose or that puppy melting heart pose. Good. Inhale back into downward facing dog. 3 breaths. On your third exhale, find your plank pose. 3 breaths. Same thing. We're going to transition on that third exhale, bringing our bodies down to the mat. Inhale. Same thing, lifting the heart. On your third exhale, we'll drop back down to flat on the belly. And up through table and our child's pose. 3 breaths. Twice more. Let's flow through this motion, returning to downward facing dog for 3 breaths.
Find that balance of engagement and letting go, that endurance and also release. Exhale, find your plank. 3 breaths. Finding our strength, our commitment to holding the shape, but not the breath, allowing that to flow. Exhale, belly. Inhale, back bend, whatever your format is. 3 breaths. Where can you soften? Where can you engage? On that last breath, release your commitment. Come back up through table and child's pose. 3 breaths. Committing to finding rest during busy seasons of our lives after finding a lot of engagement. Remembering to let go. Last round. Lift up into downward facing dog. 3 breaths. Third exhale, find your plank. 3 breaths. Good. Inhaling to lift into your back bend. 3 breaths. And rising up through table and child's pose again. Taking 3 breaths here. Rising back up into downward facing dog. Let's just take about 5 or 6 breaths here. Again, just kind of connecting to that idea of enduring. We have some challenging movements for the core that we're going to take. So we're going to slide back down into our plank shape. And again, knees can be on or off the mat. You can also, if you have sensitive wrists, use your blocks to come to forearms rather than resting your weight on the wrist. So any of these are options. Then we're going to drop heels to that left side of the mat and either balancing the right hand down, maybe lifting that right hand, maybe the arm rests along the side. Just see if you can stay for about 3 to 5 breaths. And coming back to center, dropping your knees and just kind of leaning back. So again, this is kind of a high hips child's pose shape. Relax the head down low. On an inhale, coming back into our plank pose. On an exhale, dropping heels to the left. Right arm might rise, it might rest alongside the body. It could come to your hip. It could support you for balance. See if you can take about 3 or 4 breaths, remembering that endurance and letting go of the need to perform at any particular level. Exhale, coming back into our plank and then dropping the knees, sending the hips back and highward for this modified child's pose. Good. Coming back to all fours. If you have your blocks handy, we can bring those toward the top of the mat. We'll be using those for a balancing pose in this next sequence. So again, we'll rise into downward facing dog. 5 breaths. So we're just enduring in the pose. Finding that effort and ease, the balance of the two, creating a whole experience of the pose. You might choose to lift your right leg before stepping it forward between your hands. And from here, we're gonna rise up. Back heel could be lifted or lowered, up to you, but we're gonna rise up into the torso so that crown is stretching away. Hands might lift here. They might come to hips or somehow bind behind the body, your choice. And then we can either just commit to staying here in this pose for several breaths, kind of feeling the heat building, that passion for our practice. We could also exhale and dip that left knee or that back knee down behind you. So movement or stillness. About 4 more breaths here. And then finally releasing any bind you might have in your hands, coming to both legs straight.
Heart and hips facing forward. We're gonna start to lift the chin and the heart upward, and then exhale to bow over that front right leg. So hands might rest on your thigh, on your shin, on the floor, or you could utilize those blocks. Chin can come down towards the chest, back of the heart might lift, or you might just maintain a flat back if you're floating here. And softly bend that front right knee. Walk your hands or your blocks a little further forward on the mat. And then start to lift that left leg straight back behind you. See if you can kind of play with your hips to keep them level. Hands might remain on your blocks. One or both might rise and reach forward, or rise and reach back. And again, we're just testing that endurance here. About 3 or 4 more breaths. If you fall out or lose your balance, just come back in. Stay committed to that enduring practice. Then we'll relax that right knee into a bend again, letting the left foot come back behind us. This time rising back up, both legs are straight. And as we lift the heart and the chin, hands might interlace or press into the low back or grasp opposite elbows, but we're gazing upward, heart open, drawing back our perspective a little bit, kind of backing away from the direct experience of whatever we're moving through right now. Beginning to see the more full and whole picture, opening up to our place in wholeness and the existence of wholeness within ourselves. Keep lifting up through the lengthening of the neck, even though the head is tilted slightly back. See if you can bring a little bit more engagement there. A little more softening through the shoulders. 2 more breaths. On that second exhale, relaxing any bind in the hands, bending one more time into that right knee, catching yourself on the floor and letting the left knee drop back behind you. So we've got our low lunge, and from here, we can walk that right foot out a little bit wider to the right and bring hands inside. We could stay here in a dragon shape, or we might use blocks either to lift the floor a little higher to open the heart. We might also use them, or the floor to come down to forearms. Chin could be lifted with shoulders back, or chin can come to chest with shoulders back. And again, this pose we often play with as a test of endurance. Can we commit to being fully present regardless of the sensations, whether this feels really good or is really challenging for the body or mind? Can you remain present? Can you let go of any expectations? Can you find that balance between effort and ease, between enduring commitment and a release and letting go? Can you find that wholeness, or the elements of all these opposites in balance and harmony within yourself? Three more breaths. On that last exhale, we'll start to move out of this shape, coming back to palms if you're not already there. Moving blocks out of the way again. Very slowly starting to tuck the back toes, and gently, with intention, bringing the right foot back into downward facing dog to meet the left at the back of the mat. Press into the hands. Lengthen the legs, the arms, and the spine. Soften the head and neck. One more breath in here. And as you exhale, drop the knees and relax in a child's pose for several rounds of breath. So part of our commitment to staying with the practice, part of that endurance, is reminding ourselves and committing also to taking moments of rest and reflection. So we have this practice and this detachment, this practice or non-reaction, as Heart Rep calls it, that are abhyasa and vairagya, that intense practice and letting go.
Let's move through that same sequence on the other side. So coming back into downward facing dog for 5 breaths. Engagement and release happening at the same time here. Enduring the pose with a steadiness. As you come to the end of your breath cycles, we are again going to step that left foot forward. You might choose to lift it first. That's optional. Stepping forward. Your back right heel can be on the floor or slightly lifted, but we're going to lift up again through the torso. And maybe again, arms rise. Maybe they're at hips. Maybe they're pressing in. Maybe they're bound behind your back. And we could stay here very steady and still just kind of committing to the pose. We could also dip that back knee down. So we'll stay here for about another 8 to 10 breaths. Start to feel the long hold and where it's affecting your muscles. Stay present to any sensations. Stay committed to the practice. Excellent. When you get to the end of your breath cycles, straightening both legs, release any bind in the arms. Heart and hips facing forward. Find a little bit of that lift in the heart and the chin again. Then exhale and start to fold over that left leg. And again, we might support ourselves with the leg, with the floor, or with a set of blocks. Back can be flat and engaged here if you need a little bit more action to find balance. If you need a little more release to find balance, let the chin drop to the chest and gently lift the back of the heart. One of the practices we commit to in yoga is svadhyaya, this self-reflection, looking within, knowing the self. And that is, it takes a lifetime to master. We never fully know ourselves because we're always changing. So there's always something new to learn about ourselves. Some new quality that we can possess and therefore study. Good. From here, we're going to start to move again, hands or blocks to the top of the mat a little further forward, bending into that left knee, and then lifting the right leg behind. And again, we're going to play with the level of the hips so that we're nice and flat. Feel engagement through the core, a softness in the face and breath. Hands might be resting here to support you, or they may, one or both may reach forward or back. Stay committed to the pose. Feel the challenge. And as you face this challenge directly, as you hold it and are present with it, you can start to feel that heat building in your body. This is tapas, a passion for practice. It allows us to keep going, that allows us to come back after a break. 2 more breaths. And we'll start to bend into that left knee, letting the right foot come again back behind us. And this time we're lifting up the torso again, coming back into that heart opening shape. Chin is lifted. Hands again might be at hips or pressed into the back or bound behind the body. And we're opening ourselves up to that broader view. This is where we see ourselves and the world not as separate entities, but as one wholeness. That broad perspective. Seeing wholeness within ourselves and ourselves in the wholeness of everything. Take all that vastness, that unlimited nature into your heart. Begin to see from that perspective. Engage a little bit through the spine, that even though the head's tilted slightly back, we have a long neck,
Allow the shoulders to soften downward a little bit, some of that engagement, some of that letting go. About 3 more breaths. On our last exhale here, we'll again release any bind in the hands or arms and begin to bend into that left knee, coming all the way down to the floor into our low lunge, right knee dropping behind us. And we'll again find our dragon pose. So wiggle walking that left foot a little wider and taking the dragon of your choice, whether you're remaining on palms or using some sort of prop to support you. So for anybody who has ever run a marathon, I have not. I have lots of friends who love these marathons and Ironman competitions. They don't just jump into the marathon. They don't just jump into the Ironman. For a long time before then, they're practicing. They're working up to it. And in this moment, with our heart either open at the front of the body or at the back of the body, chin may be lifted or towards the chest, in this moment we are practicing for stillness. Practicing connecting to our wholeness and completeness, even among strong challenges. Feel where there might be heat building in the body, that's the fire of transformation, the zeal to continue to stay committed to our practice, and also feel the heaviness in the pelvis as we let go, as we release any expectations. Just a few more rounds of breath here. Let's begin our transition back again to downward facing dog. Moving slowly, fully present, tucking the right toes, making your slow transition back into downward facing dog. About 5 breaths or so here. As your last breath flows out, allowing the knees to come all the way down and dropping again into child's pose. The commitment we make to an enduring practice always requires of us to take rest. It always requires of us to find a balance between doing and being. We'll take about 5 more breaths here in our child's pose and just allow yourself to be. No doing, not worrying about alignment, just releasing. When you're ready to come back out of this shape, let's come back into a downward facing dog shape. And you can decide which foot you want to step forward to the top of the mat. What we're going to do is step so that we're facing the long edge of the mat. So you can take the one that allows you to stay connected to the camera. And then we're just going to start to turn the body. So we're basically in a wide-legged forward fold. Just kind of soften that upper body. Find that letting go, the vairagya. Keep a little soft bend at the backs of the knees, but feel engaged as if your outer edges of your feet, your pinky edges are sort of grounding down. Kind of feel that. Intentionally lift the tailbone even as the knees take a soft bend. Then start to bend one knee and then the other, maybe just a little bit at first. Maybe moving a little deeper with each pass to the right and the left.
And then start to walk your hands toward your left foot. We're going to start to turn the body a little bit so we can come into that low lunge. Right knee will drop behind you. And this time we're going to wiggle walk the left foot over towards the right wrist, left knee falling to the left wrist, and find a pigeon pose. So we might choose some support underneath that left hip. We're going to take just a few breaths with the heart lifted. Elbows might be straight or bent, but kind of pressing into the earth, kind of lifting through the heart. Soften your hips. But keep reaching up with your heart. Feel that multi-directional pull. Next, exhale, start to lower down, maybe to forearms, maybe to the belly. Back of the heart might lift as chin comes to chest. Just see again, where can you let go a little bit more? Where might a little bit of engagement help you hold this pose with commitment? Can you be with the experience of letting go of whether this is making you more strong or more flexible, and just simply be with the experience of the pose in the present moment. Allowing the sensations and your awareness of them to be the very reward that we're seeking. If you've lowered down to a low position in your pigeon pose, start to come back to your hands. This is a tricky move, but we're going to try to lean onto that left hip, maybe even coming down onto some support from our arms so that we can free that right leg from behind us. And coming back to the center of the mat, we're just going to cross the right leg over the left. So it might look like this, or it might look like the knees stacking on one another. Could also look like fire log pose where the shins are stacked on top of one another. But feel that sense of grounding in the low body again. Feel that sense of lift and engagement from the core upward or just below the ribs upward. Find a place for your hands to rest and relax. From this shape, we're just going to take a couple of lateral bending movements. So hands can come beside you, just behind your feet, and we're going to lift up and over to one side, back to center, lift and reach to the side on the other side, back to center. So just take a few of these, again, committing to motion, staying grounded in our hips, steady and stable even as the upper body finds movement. Excellent. Coming back to center, we're going to bring the hands behind the body, free the legs out from their crossed shape and into a squat. We're going to start to bring ourselves forward again. And standing up, hands are on the floor. We're kind of still in that fold. Standing up in the legs, though, walking our feet wide again into that wide forward fold. Start to bend one knee and then the other a few times. We're going to find that same sequence on our other side. So we'll start to walk hands toward the right foot, kind of turning the body to come into that low lunge shape. And again, we can set ourselves up for pigeon by walking the right foot nearer to the left wrist and dropping the right knee to the right, maybe finding support under the right hip or walking that left leg back. We'll take a few rounds of breath with the heart engaged and lifted, the crown reaching up, that long neck. Even as we kind of press in or lift up with intention and action, softening the hips downward. Balancing our effort and our ease. Committing to the pose even as we let go within it.
As you take your next exhale, maybe walk the hands a little further forward, or maybe coming to forearms on the floor or on blocks.
Chin can drop down towards the chest, lengthening the back of the neck. Maybe the heart also lifts.
Maybe we find that little bit of engagement to lift the back of the heart as we let go of the weight of our hips
and the head. Reminding ourselves that this is just practice. That this allows us this awareness that we hold in this pose, the balance of letting go and engaging and committing, is good practice for when we find ourselves in challenging situations in life. The more we practice that stability and steadiness, that evenness, that harmony, the better we are at it when we need it off the mat. And not just thinking about future instances where this reward from this practice is coming in, but actually staying connected to the oneness we feel right now, the balance that we feel right now, our ability to withstand and endure strong sensations in the body or the mind in this moment, reaping the rewards even as we practice. Just a few more breaths in our pigeon pose. To transition, we'll try to take that tricky move again. So returning back to the palms on the mat if you're not already there. And then starting to lean our weight over into that right hip, so that we can free that back leg from behind us. This time the right leg's gonna be the bottom knee, and the left foot can just cross to the outside of it, or we could stack the knees again. Making sure the sitting bones feel level, finding that steadiness and heaviness down below, and that engagement and lift above. Pausing, letting the hands rest wherever they're most comfortable. Committing to stillness. Committing to letting go. Returning again and again to the breath. Again and again to stillness. Let's find those lateral movements in the spine again. So hands returning down to the mat on either side. Lifting up and over with one side, coming back to center, up and over with the other side, just taking these lateral movements, feeling the balance between the open and compressed side of the body. Watching how they reverse one to the other, constant motion in that upper body, reaching through the arms, opening and closing the side bodies, even as the hips remain stable, steady, and still. Feeling both that motion and the stillness, the effort and the ease, the heaviness, and the upward flowing motion of energy in the body. When you come back to center, bring the hands again behind the body to free our legs from their crossed shape, unwinding. And let's just turn the body now so the feet are facing the top of the mat. And we're gonna roll down onto the spine. Once the back of the head, the shoulders, and the sacrum are resting, make any adjustments you need to feel very stable and steady in the spine. Hands might relax down by your sides like Shavasana, or they might come up and overhead or out wide like a T, but pausing, finding a place where you can just be still. Float the feet away from the floor, drawing the knees softly in towards the chest. Just find a little rocking from side to side. going to take 3 more little instances of really intense commitment and engagement, and then we're going to soften into some spinal twist and brief spinal twist on each side. So pause in the center here, just let your knees hover above your chest. And what we're going to try to do is engage or flex the abdominal muscles in such a way that the bottom of the sacrum near the tailbone begins to lift away from the mat. So we're kind of pulling, without using our hands, pulling the knees in towards the chest. See if you can allow 3 or 4 breaths to pass as you engage there. And then soften. You can even let the feet come onto the floor. Really let go of the core muscles there. Letting the feet lift again without using your hands. Pull your knees in towards your chest. See if you can get the sacrum to lift a little bit. Engage here. Stay smooth in your breath as you feel this effort. Keep your shoulders and your face relaxed. And again, soften, let go. Feet can return to the floor. Last round of effort. Draw the knees back in towards the chest without using your arms. Pull them in tight towards your chest. Lift the sacrum as much as you can away from the floor. Take 3 or 4 breaths. Then relax and release. Start to find that side-to-side motion in your knees. Choosing whichever side to come first that feels good to you. Let your knees fall all the way to one side of your mat. Keeping your shoulders grounded. Maybe the head turns away from the knees. And just take about 5 to 6 breaths. Seeing how much you can let go. No effort, no engagement, no tension. Soften into the floor. When it's time to switch sides, move back to center on an exhale. Take a nice big breath in, and then exhale again to bring your body or your knees to the other side of your body. Again, maybe your head falls to the opposite side. And just take about 6 or 7 breaths. Seeing how much you can let go in that period of time. Letting go through the breath, letting go through any muscles in the face, relaxing the shoulders down. When you feel really balanced between right and left sides in your twist, move back to center again with the knees on an exhale so that your core is engaged, and then start to work your way into your resting shape. Feel free to utilize any support. And this is where we make that enduring commitment to rest, an enduring commitment to connection with stillness. As you settle into your pose, relax and release all effort now. Committing to that mental connection with all that is, recognizing our oneness, recognizing our completeness as an individual, and our place in the wider wholeness of all that is. You rest easy in the sound of the Om.
in your stillness. Commit to that higher awareness, that higher perspective. Commit to practicing that greater, vaster point of view as often as you can. Feel any sensations within the body, any sensations coming to you from outside the body, and bringing them in just as a full experience of this moment, a full presence, and a letting go of expectation, committing to stillness, and remembering that practice is the sustained effort to rest in stillness. It is the steadfast commitment to stilling the fluctuations of the mind. Feel the movements of mind, the movements of breath, the movements of heart and circulation within. Feel the movements outside of your body in the wider world. And just remain in that place of stillness, that watching. Practicing steadiness. And from that stillness, enduring and committing to practicing stillness, allow the body to begin to find those soft and subtle movements that reawaken. From stillness to movement in the body, but remaining in stillness. As the movements of your body become less and less subtle, more and more broad-ranging. Take any stretch or contraction that might feel good to your body. And take a nice, slow transition back to that seated place. Ever mindful, ever still within, even as the body moves. Coming back into that seated position where we feel the two halves of practice, that letting go, that heaviness, the release that's happening in the hips, the shoulders, and the face, the engagement that's happening in the core, the intentional lift of the heart, that intentional rising up through the crown of the head, that downward pull through the hips and shoulders, the upward pull through the core, the heart, and the head. In each hand, we hold some opposite, either effort and ease, or stability and fluidity, or commitment and release. Bring those two palms to touch, unifying those concepts into wholeness, and then pull that wholeness into your heart center. Continue to lift through the heart even as you relax the chin down, looking within, committing to that constant awareness of self, constant awareness and connection to wholeness, and the letting go of individual identity into the wholeness that we are. As we continue to practice, we better our own lives and contribute to the betterment of the wholeness of which we are a part. And so our practice is the reward for ourselves and for all others. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.